and then we'll get going. Okay, so again, thank you guys so much for being here with me today. And my name is Professor Kelsey Coles with the Divination Academy. I'm so happy you're here. If you have not been here with us before, thank you for finding us. I did just put 3 links in the chat there for you guys. Those are important links if you're new. We have our website there where we have a lot of information there for you. We have resources, study guides, information about our professors, certification programs, things like that. Go and check it out. We also have our YouTube page where most of our classes get posted. It can take a little bit of time for it to get posted because our amazing director, Alex, she actually reviews every single class. And once she reviews it, then she gets it up there for us. So bear with us and then it'll get all of mine for sure do end up there. So that is our YouTube page. I think right now we have 140 videos the last time I checked of a lot of amazing class topics to go and check out in between classes too. If you guys do choose to do that and you're enrolled in the academy, just make sure to write your essay and get it submitted to Alex and get it submitted to your mentorship group so you can get credit for that class. And then the other link that you have in here is going to be our Facebook page. If you're just finding us and you're not enrolled, that's how you're going to get enrolled. Send us a direct message saying you'd like to be enrolled in the academy. Doing so gets you access to all of our community Facebook chats. It gets you access to the community Facebook group, the private community group. There are some classes that you can only take if you're enrolled. And then it just gives you access to your professors a lot more often too, and friendship and a lot of other stuff. So just enroll. Just do it. Just send us a message in TM if you haven't yet. So other than that, when it comes to the Divination Academy, I always do a little bit of a disclaimer just about myself. So again, my name is Professor Kelsey Coes. I consider myself a mystic who practices gray witchcraft. I look from everywhere, a lot of different pantheons. I practice from a lot of different ways, a lot of different styles, a lot of different things. I do a lot of deity work, which is why I'm doing these deity classes for you. I love the deities. I love working with them. And then specifically the dark goddesses is who these are about, because I feel like all these goddesses are incredibly misunderstood. And because I am a gray practitioner, I do everything from a place of balance, and I view energy as I don't view good versus evil. That's not how I look at things. Everything's energetic. I don't look at it in this good versus evil way. That's the best way that I can claim. I just don't like that. And I don't view things that way. So when we're working with this dark goddess today, I always ask every single class, make sure you come to this dark goddess with reverence and respect. We're not coming to it to learn like how she's evil or negative or wrong. That's not what we're doing. We're coming to learn and fully understand her. So that is how, just make sure we're coming with an open mind. And then today, I'm not going to call her in because I am not feeling well, but I will teach all of class. Usually I call them in so that you guys can meet them and we go through a whole experience together. But today I'm just not going to do that because I don't want to bring you guys to my energy. I hope that's okay. But we are going to get going on Kalima. Does anybody have any like questions or anything they want to say about her before we get going? Before I jump in? If so, go for it. You can unmute yourself. You can put in the chat. Otherwise, I can just get going right away.
Hey Kelsey, it's Paul.
How are you?
Not too bad. Kelsey, will you be going into the origins?
Of Kalima?
Yeah,
Yeah, I have the 3 different ones that we have of her.
superb. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So we'll get going. Before I go into the interview about her, first thing first is a lot of people, they love her. They use her for protection. They use her for injustice, purification. She's great for bringing forth balance, ridding evil. That is a very, my Sanskrit does have that idea in there, because she is a Hindu goddess. She is used for that. I use her for repressed and explosive anger as well. I I call to her a lot to help with that. And because she's great with those intense emotions. So that's something that I'll talk about a little bit later when we get into worship. I don't come across a lot of people that use her in that way. So I wanted to kind of put that at the beginning. I think it's a little bit unique that I use her that way, but whenever I start to notice that I'm getting incredibly explosive about little things, or I am starting to get really on edge and really intense. She's actually a deity that always pulls to me to call to her. She's the one to where like she lets me know and sit in that anger, and figure out like, is it justified? Is it valid? And if it is justified and valid, is that intensity justified and valid? Because I want to always make sure that I'm sitting in wise mind, and I don't want to sit in this calm, peaceful state all the time. I want to sit in the emotion that I'm feeling and sit in that feeling emotion correctly and in the correct level and intensity. And she's always the one that pulls to me to really let me and help me understand like where that anger specifically is coming from, and then how to take that anger and move it into something to make the change that I need into my life. More so than any other dark goddess, she really calls to me for anger. But again, like I said, a lot of people use her for purification and protection. She's meant for protection. She's really, really meant for protection. I use her a lot for that as well. Um, so we can get to the overview. The goddess Kali, she's one of the most popular Hindu goddesses, even today. She's also one of the most mysterious deities, I think, in Hinduism, and also the most misunderstood. She's often described as a devouring mother. She's well known as the goddess of both destruction and the goddess of rebirth. So here again, as we see with most deities that end up claimed as dark goddesses and claimed as dark deities, they're very, very actually dual. They are very much in duality, and she is here as well. She has those opposing elements very strongly in her archetype. She exhibits traces of death and revenge, but also love and delicacy. You really actually see that a lot with how she cares for the humankind and what her role is for the humankind, because she really is the one that she's called to do the dirty deeds, what people see evil deeds that are meant to wipe everything evil really out. She is meant to do the dirt, the dirty work, the grinding that nobody else wants to do. She's meant to do those things that might be morally gray, but it's what's actually right overall for the good. And that's how she's seen with protecting. So that's where you also see that duality, and you see that kindness, that love, that delicacy, and then also her connection with Shiva, which I'm going to go into detail too. She's got a very deep connection to Shiva. And Shiva actually exists to calm her down, which is super interesting. And I love that. I love that. It's a paradoxical kind of thing. Kali Ma is also seen as the divine mother. If you look at Skati traditions, which actually are becoming a lot more popular. And Skati is where it's more Hindu traditions that are more focused in the feminine, where the feminine is the divine creatress, the feminine archetype, the feminine energy, that is the divine, that is the almighty. It's where the feminine is viewed as Christians would view their God, their male masculine God. That is how that view is worked. So in that, she's seen as the divine mother. She's also seen as a dark mother. She's called the terrible mother. She's the Hindu goddess of time and creation and preservation and destruction. And her image is super, super interesting, and I love it. We're gonna get into that. It's amazing. Some people think it looks really demonic. Some people think that it looks more like she looks more like a demon rather than an actual goddess. And I think that's another reason why they have a hard time kind of wrapping around her, and why they're able to like give her this very like dark connotation all the time, and why they're so scared of her. Because she does appear so fearsome, because she is just like she's this very, very intense, raw power that's meant to wipe out all that's evil. When I get into her myth stories, like she literally was summoned to be able to take out one of the most powerful demons ever in existence. She's the other half of Durga, which is one of the most powerful, enlightened beings within the Hindu pantheon, in deities. And so if you look at how powerful Durga and immensely powerful Durga is, and one of the origins is that she's literally created from Durga, and the other half of Durga, and she's seen as the other aspect of Durga. So if she's that immense and that powerful in that aspect, of course she's going to be that immense and that powerful in the other aspect, in the protective aspect, in the aspect that's meant to take out the evil side. When it comes to more of her overview as well, she's seen as a very, very terrifying warrior goddess. She's incredibly fierce. She's almost always illustrated with her weapons, with her, the devas, which I'll go over in a little bit more detail in a little bit. She's not only a dark goddess, but she's also a goddess of empowerment. She's a goddess of fierce determination. Again, because when I get into her myth and her origin story, once I get through her overview, her energy exists to slay demonic energies. So it's very fierce, fierce, fierce determination. She is the willingness, she is the energy and the deity that is willing and able to do anything that is necessary that others aren't able to do because she destroys her ego. She is the symbolic meaning and she is a representation of completely destroying your ego and that the body doesn't matter. She is the complete personification of balance with your spiritual self in the spiritual world. I mean, when she's even killing demons, like she's happy about it. Like her tongue's out, she's lapping up their blood. Like it's fun for her. She's fierce, she's love, she's protecting, she's granting liberation to others. She destroys she's destroying our attachment to our temporary body. She's destroying our attachment to our ego. And you can see this throughout a lot of her representations and with how she looks, which I'll actually go over now because I think I've done a lot with her overview. So when it comes to how she looks, in some images, she's actually seen and depicted as riding a lion. That's very common in one of the origins and myths that she's in. She is written as riding on a lion up into that. So some images you'll see her with that, some you won't. The most common one actually is her dance with Shiva, which I'll talk about later. She almost always is wearing her garland of severed heads, and she's wearing a skirt that is made of dismembered arms. And literally, like nothing else, she's almost always has like this disheveled, like dark flowing hair. The earliest depictions, she was more dark skin, like dark toned skin, more Ethiopian type color, dark type skin. And then more of the recent translation, more of the recent versions is where you start to see that blue tint and you start to see that blue skin for her. But she'll be depicted as either one of those. She always has multiple arms. Typically, you see her with four. Sometimes you'll see her with eight, and then sometimes with 10. Each arm is carrying what is considered a divine weapon that was gifted to her from other deities. They're also called devas. She also has swords. Well, the Deva is a sword. Her tongue is almost always sticking out. You almost always see her tongue sticking out. I'm going to go into depth all this imagery because each thing actually means something that's very, very specific, especially to the Hindu religion, and in Hinduism. And then that's typically almost always how you see her. So you'll see her very fierce, she's very, very, very fierce, with all her devas and all those things in her arms. And like I said, the most common image is that dance with Shiva, and I'll talk about what that symbolizes and what that actually is, a little bit later. I'm gonna jump into the chat quick. Actually, no, hold on. One other thing before I do that, when you go online and on the internet and on social media and Pinterest and all over the place, I actually, when I was going to verify a lot of this stuff and look to see what other people are talking about and how other people are teaching her, there's a lot of misinformation actually about her out there, more than I have found about any other deity. They paint her very, very one-sided in a lot of senses. A lot of them paint her in a very demonic view, very, very negative, very evil, again, I don't like those words, but it's the words I'm choosing because that's how other people choose to use them. But they paint her in a it's very, very negative light and to like stay away from her, which they do with a lot of dark goddesses, but her, it's very, very one-sided. Or then you see this other one-sided where they paint her as like a superhero vixen. And it's very like they only focus on like the tantric and the sexual aspect and they get rid of like her duality and her balance and her actual role and like why she was summoned and how she protects people. And it's a lot, it's very, very one-sided and it's very destructive, the image that they show of her as well. So just be very careful when you're looking for stuff outside of this, and I don't actually do this very often I don't know if I've done this with a lot of other deities that I've taught before, but with her, I really notice with her, like it's really, really one-sided, and it's very, I just don't like it. One of the main actually like people who have written about her, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name super well, but it's Suri Ramakska. He actually talks about this in the gospel where he wrote about where he quotes directly from her and from the meditation living life with her as a devotee to her, that to the ignorant she is, to be sure, the image of destruction. And so he even like was calling out way before that, like, this is how she's going to be portrayed and this is how people are going to see her. So I just please, I want to have caution with that with her. With any other deities, just when you go and look on for your own information, be very careful. And again, I think it's this way because I'm in the Western part of the world, and Western society has a big influence than I would like it to have. And we just really struggle in this Western side of the world to accept this concept of duality. Like, it's drilled into us from the very beginning that duality can't be a thing. Like, it's this or that, and that we have to be good or evil or bad or wrong, and like all these things. And I think she ends up getting painted so one-sided, and this happens because of that influence and because we struggle so hard to accept duality. It's something that we can't see in separate people, let alone seeing it in one individual and in one deity. And she really encompasses this. And I think that's a huge reason why. Okay, I'm gonna jump in the chat just to see if there's any questions or comments. Post study guide. I should be able to grab it really quick for you. Copy. Should be able to get it. Yes, Paul. Misinformation I find out there is nuts on every topic too. Like, and everybody thinks, yeah, just because it's online means it's true. And then they get mad when people call them out that it's misinformation. Oh, that could be a whole other rant. I don't want to go down that. That could be a whole other rant on misinformation. If I could do a TED Talk, it'd probably be on that, honestly. If they asked me one thing, it'd probably be on that. No, I take it back. It'd be on the lack of reading comprehension. Okay, so we're gonna go back into class and in the study guide. Okay. So who is she exactly? I kind of, like I said, I talked about a lot in the overview, but I always try to go over it again and make sure I get as detailed as I possibly can for you guys. So she's really seen as the uncontrollable aspect of Durga, the warrior goddess. She's seen as having absolutely unlimited power and that she can defeat any threat she faces. Literally any threat she faces. That's how powerful she's seen. The deities recognize that she has that much power. The goddess Kali is the goddess of destruction in Hinduism. Also known as, I'm not going to be able to pronounce it, so I'm just going to spell it Mahaka Ali. I've heard it, actually, I'm going to do it again. I've heard it Mahakali, and then I've heard just Ma Kali. I've heard it both. And Maha means great. See, I told myself I wasn't going to pronounce it, but I did. So hopefully I didn't butcher it too bad. If I did, you can totally correct me. That's totally fine. She is seen as the ultimate expression of nature because she's both destructive and benevolent at the same time. She is literally summoned by the deities to protect her people against evil, and she literally does whatever she can to protect them. Again, I'm going to go over that story and the myth in detail in a little bit later, but we will go over that. Don't worry. The Hindu goddess Kali embodies the power of creation and destruction. She is a primordial. She's very nurturing. She's very creative, creating, and she's also devouring at the same time. She is seen as the goddess of death and is also terrifying and is amazing in that fact as well. A lot of people see her as the most compassionate of the Hindu pantheon, which I believe is why there's a lot of, when it comes to like the divine mother worship and deities worship, she's the deity that's picked. Because she is so protective. When I go over this origin story, like in these origin stories in this myth, you're gonna understand why she's so protective. She is super destructive. Her power is crazy destructive, but she never harms the innocent. She never harms the innocent. And her destruction always allows for rebirth. I talk about this every class. You always have to have a death, a destruction. You always have to have everything tear down before something new can be reborn. That is the way of the universe. That is the way of energy. That's the way things go. You can't just create something like out of nothing. Like, the energy has to get cyclical, has to go through. So something has to die for the next thing to be reborn. And she really fully brings that in and summarizes that all in one being, and it's beautiful. She's seen as the divine mother of the universe, the empress of the universe. Her glory is absolutely unmeasurable. She is worshipped in place of and before a lot of the other male counterparts in many sects of Hinduism, actually, because she's seen as creatress, and the one that holds and sustains the universe. Again, I talked about this before. This is typically known as the Skata or Skati view of religion. And even like when they talk in the Puranas, which again, if I'm wrong, you can totally correct me on the pronunciation. Even Braham and Vishnu, they're narrated as seeking the divine mother's blessing and pleading to be put back on earth in order to bring back order out of the chaos. Like they have to go to her and seek her blessing in order to do that. So it's seen that the universal mother is actually embodied in the divine form of Kali, and she is the mother to actually everybody and everything. Um, Kali is also considered the Hindu goddess of rebirth. Because she's considered the goddess of destruction, she has to be considered the goddess of rebirth if she's going to inquire both at the same time. This is also because the word Kali actually translates to the meaning, it means time. Time creates everything. It also destroys everything. Nothing can escape time. Everything has to be in the flow of time. Everything within it has to be destroyed in order to be created. So that is why she's also seen and tied to all three of those aspects as well. She's super multifaceted. She's incredibly complex with her duality. Um, Even though she appears in many violent stories, including her origin story, she's considered the goddess of creation because creation can't exist without destruction. And she really teaches that. And again, I'm going to repeat this over and over and over again because it's so important with her. And you've heard it in other classes too, because it's so important. Also, I'm personally going through that right now. So like, it's really, really hammering into me. And that's why I'm calling to her a lot. Just I keep everything's getting torn down for me and having to be rebuilt back up. But I've talked about this before. As much as I hate these times, I also love these times because I have no idea what I have coming next. But I know it's always going to be better than wherever I just was. She's also called to by expectant mothers turn to her for fertility. Artists turn to her for inspiration. She's found a lot of times, actually, especially in paintings, you actually will see her a lot for inspiration there. I see it all over the place. It's actually really beautiful and interesting. And it's also because she represents the dark and the light and the good and the evil, like people like to say. A lot of people call to her in very critical times, especially when action has to be taken. Like if action needs to be happen, action needs to be taken, protection needs to happen, and injustice needs to be taken care of. Something that you consider unwanted, negative, or evil in your life absolutely needs to be removed. It needs to be dealt with. Something that's very serious to you, like those are the very critical times where people will really call on her, or she will call to you and you will feel her. Because she's ready to take on the torment for you. She's ready to take on the torment for the world. She's ready to protect her children. She's ready to be there. Like she really, really, really is the embodiment of that protective mother energy. But again, she'll punish us if we need to, which is part of being a good mom. She's got quite a few different epithets and names that she goes by. So Kali is a feminine, like I said, she's a feminine form of Kala. She's part of, so in Hindu word, both mean that black and time. So Kali means both black and time. Kali exists outside of time. She is also outside the constraints of light and dark, outside of any of that. She has an incredibly complex relationship with that. So her epithets are usually the I've seen her as are the force of time, she who is time, she who devours time. I've also seen the devouring mother, she who is the mother of time. I've seen the divine mother, the divine creatress, she who is black, she who is black time. I've seen Kali Ma, I've seen Mahakali, I've seen Mother Kali. She's got a lot of epithets and names. I'm pretty sure I didn't even list them all. I'm pretty sure I've actually probably missed some. If I did, go ahead and throw them in the chat for sure. So that everybody, like, if I miss some. Are there books that you recommend reading? I do have a couple books in there, Morgan, on her, but on specific types of her practice. I think I put one in there that's specifically on Tantra, and I think I put one in there on mudras, and then I have a bunch of links in there for mantras, as well. Yeah, I will double check though to see if I have one in there for like history or anything like that. I don't know if I did. I didn't mean to jump back in the chat, but I did. So I'm answering the chat, guys, if you have any questions. I accidentally clicked a button. Okay. Paul, do you have any? I would think if you knew any names, if there are any names I missed, you would know them. I don't think there's a lot that I've seen her go by though. She has a lot of names. Um, Okay, so what does she look like again in more detail? So we're gonna go down her look in a lot more detail, because again, she's got a lot of symbolization tied to her, especially that comes directly from the Hinduism itself and the religion itself. Like I talked about before, the early visuals of her actually present her as all black and more of like a skeletal crone. So if you think like a little bit more like Lady Hell. So she looks a little bit more like that. She's a little bit more like skeletal crone, a little bit all black, which really, and she's really representing her destructive side and her relationship to time in that. She's usually seen carrying the Khatvaga, Khatvanga, which is a type of staff topped with a skull, and she's typically also carried by shamans. In those pictures, those very, very early visuals that we see with her. And then it becomes a lot more recent. I want to say, why do I not have the date in here? I'm actually going to have to make a note to get the date back to you when exactly this imagery changed. I swear I put it in here. And off the top of my head, I can't think right now. But it did much more recently though. The images changes to where she starts to be represented with that blue skin, and she starts to be represented more in the duality, and she starts to be represented more in that body imagery that you see now with and Shiva's dance. You see that a lot more with her dance with Shiva. It changes, like I said, it changes more recently. The very first visuals, like I said, all black skeletal figure. In the first visuals, though, she is still depicted when it changes as a dark-skinned woman. It's a lot more modern where she changes to that blue-skinned woman. She's usually shown with long black hair. Her face and her body are usually or sometimes stained with red blood. She's always showing her tongue showing. Always has three eyes. I've never seen her without three eyes. If you have, please show me an image. I would love to see it. And I would love to be proved wrong on that one because I don't like even using the word always. I hate using those words. I hate using definitive words like that. But I've never seen her without her tongue out, and I can't find anybody else who says otherwise. Um and always having three eyes. The third eye is always in a vertical position. She's usually depicted as having four arms. Sometimes she's shown with eight, and sometimes in 10. Very rarely do I see 10. Usually though it's four, and then like I said, eight. In each arm, she holds a divine weapon given by the gods, otherwise known as a deva. Just like Durga would, and just like Durga does. She has that adornment around her neck, which is made of human skulls. She's always wearing that. I don't think I've ever seen her without that. Uh, Sometimes you do see her without her skirt though, and she's just completely naked, but typically she's using a skirt made of human arms. Kali's skirt is made of dismembered arms. It actually represents action. It represents karma. It represents all karma, all dharma, all of it going back to Kalima. And it represents that all death, all the souls merge with her, and then they're reborn again through the karma being restored. The garlands on her neck, the garland around her neck. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna mute myself to cough for a minute. Okay, I'm back. Thank you. I apologize. Okay, so the garland around her neck, usually I see two different answers and two different arguments on this, but I've seen 50 and 51 as the answer for how many garlands of human skulls that she has in that garland. And it represents the chain of incarnation. And it also represents the souls of her children that she has liberated. And that's why she has them with her, because it's representing the souls of all her children that she's liberated through her battles, through her fighting, and through what she does to protect us. So that's what that garland represents. She's almost always appears naked or, like I said, dressed only in her garland, or her skirt of arms, because she's infinite and pure. She has no need to have clothing. She's also sometimes referred to Digma Bari, which is meaning clad in space. because there's no type of finite clothing or no type of clothing that we could perceive that could be able to be wrapped within her, like her infinite form could actually be wrapped in, because she's so pure and she's with her energy and all the energy that she represents, even though she represents both of it. When we see the change to her blue skin, it's typically to try to show like that duality in her. It's trying to show like that dark blue. It's trying to show like that duality, and you see the duality in nature, and the fact that she's representing all the duality of nature and nature's force. Um, her white teeth, it's actually very specific that her teeth are white. It represents goodness, spatva, purity, Sattva is how you spell that. It's the pure nature. Her tongue is red because it represents rajas, Rajas, which is passion and activity. So she uses that and she uses that energy to be able to preserve life, to be able to create things, to be able to give the rebirth after the destruction. Her eyes are red, almost always with rage and intoxication. We get to her story. She gets euphoric from the blood of demons, and she gets euphoric from battle, and she gets euphoric from everything that she's doing. She also represents like that pleasure of that. So that's what that intoxication part of that means. Um, and then she also represents ignorance as well with that. In her left hand, she carries a sword of knowledge to destroy ignorance, and a severed head in the other left hand, which represents liberation from the ego or attachment of the body. In her two right hands, you will be showing the, I can't, uh, Abhaya mudra, which is Abhaya mudra, which is for fearlessness, and then the Varada mudra, which is for blessing. She is, like I said, most popularly predicted with those 4 arms, and sometimes she has those 10. Her 10-arm form is called the Mahakali, and her 10 arms are usually depicted holding many different ritualistic items and weapons, and they each represent a different power from one of the devas, which also actually implies that the Mahakali is responsible for the powers that the devas actually have. Some people actually think I do have a nice little visual in the study guide to try to remember her arms, the 4 major arms, because it's pretty significant what they represent. Um, let's see, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, her hair, the fact that it's always wild and restless. It actually represents her bloodlust, freedom, and the mystery of the relationship between life and death. The fact that she has 3 eyes, you have 2 eyes to see with, and obviously our third eye is our wisdom, our intuition, our psychic abilities, our divinity, and all of that. It's also very specific that her breasts are visual, that her breasts are usually always visible. Her breasts symbolize, sexuality, her maternal nature, nurturing. The fact that she's naked, we talked about the purity, lustfulness, all of that. We talked about her dark complexion. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, fabulous. Okay. So I'm gonna pause here. Do you guys have any questions about her looks at all and what each thing kind of means? I see. I lean towards the 51 too, Paul. I've seen some people say 50 more than I would like, but I lean towards the 51 too because of that right there. The fact of the 51 characters of Sanskrit alphabet. I've seen that too. I've seen that one too. Om Kalima. Yep. I have that one actually in the study guide as well. Yep. I love it, Paul. Yeah, see. Nope. Have you seen people say 50 like I have? Have you seen a bunch of people say 50 like I have?
Yeah, I have. But I've probably seen more on the 51 than what I have with the 50.
I agree with that too.
And when you go down these rabbit holes, which we inevitably do when we're researching, what I see about the 50, there's a lot of crossover with the 51, which is why I've always associated Carrie with the number 51. Um, I'm in the middle of typing out the reasons right now.
I'm
Um,
you're good.
um, I I'll be honest with you, Kelsey. I've not had a chance to look at the study guide yet. I'm watching my grandson at the moment, so I'm kind of listening, but not fully immersed in it like I should be.
Oh no, you're fine.
I've seen more. It's like my favorite quote about Abraham Lincoln. He said, "If it's not online, if it's on the internet, it's not necessarily true." And he said that during his address at Gettysburg. They just forgot to put that in there. Um, the more I rabbit hole things, um, I see a lot of crossover and similarities between 50 versus 51, and no disrespect to the Western world, but
Yep.
the people that are saying 50 tend to be Western authors, whereas 51 tend to be the Eastern and, the people you would expect to have the correct knowledge.
I
I think
agree.
is a polite way of putting it.
I agree. I agree.
So that's why I always associate, as I say, I've always associated Cali with 51. But like you, I've also read 50 all over the place. But unfortunately, that tends to be. I think a lot of it comes into the confusion of which set of numerology you're using too, and
Oh,
it
I
kind
can
of
see that.
ties into the numerology side of things. But then, if you look at the true origin, it comes down to, from what I understand, is the mandra and the actual letters of the alphabet and how that corresponds to the written word, because the written word couldn't exist, and obviously Kali is associated with creation, so on and so forth. So that's where I get the 51 from.
I totally agree with you. I don't, but yeah, I just wanted to hear if you've seen it like I am. So I totally, thank you. I love it. Thank you. That's what I have to say to that. Okay, so I don't see anything
But I
else in
will
there.
be, oh, sorry, I
No, go
will be
ahead,
on.
go ahead.
The Hindu Pantheon is not one of my strong points. So I'm actually glad this is being recorded, because I'm going to have to go back and, I mean, I know some of the stuff you've already said allows me to expand on notes I've already got. So I will be completely open and upfront. Hindu Pantheon, not one of my strong points at all. So I'm learning here too, which is great.
Yay. I love it. Yay. That makes me feel good. I love it. Yay. Okay. I love it. Yay. Okay. Let's jump back in. Okay. So symbolism. I've talked about it kind of briefly before, but I like to go really in depth with you guys. As you know, I always overview and then we go in. So symbolism with Kali as a whole, she really, really symbolizes the death of the ego, which is the ultimate goal of the human life in Hindu Dharma, which is, liberation of the cycle of rebirth, moksha, which Moksha. Kali is literally the embodiment of time. So, and she literally, like I said, she's there to show you how to reach your ultimate goal of your human life. That's what she's there for. She's a female form of Shiva, otherwise also called Kala. Her name literally means she who is black, which I've talked on before. Kali is actually said to live in cemeteries amid decaying corpses because she wants to be there to remind us that our world is nothing but a cemetery where all things that are born will eventually decay and die and get buried. And she's there to remind us and show us that like our physical world really doesn't matter. Like this is where you're going to end up. And so that's another reason, like Paul and I were talking about, like with the Sanskrit alphabet and that connection there. But this is another reason why that garland of skulls is there, like why where that symbolism comes from as well, is this symbolism as well to show us that connection to the physical realm as well, to show us that like we don't need to have such a strong connection to them. We don't need to have such a strong connection to that because that's where we're all going to end up in cemeteries, in the ground, decaying or dying, or in tombs. We're going to end up as decaying, dying corpses. that's what's going to happen. So she really, really helps us sever that ego. That's really what she symbolizes. She also, in almost a lot of like her images, you'll see her like dripping blood either from her face or you'll see it like dripping from her weapons. Like that blood dripping is actually she drips blood to be able to consume all creation and to create creation. Like that's so she's also showing that symbolism and showing that to us as well. Like we're there to create, consume, we're there to be a part of that cycle, we're there to be a part of that energy, we're there to be a part of nature. She reminds us every single minute that something is constantly being destroyed and constantly being created. It is every minute, every second, all the time. This energy is always going, it's always stopping, it's always there. Um, she is there to come and show and rise up during the greatest of evils when the world is absolutely at its knees and needing us the most. Like that is when she is there to show up. That's what she symbolizes. She symbolizes the worlds, the universes. She's also there to symbolize like their hope, their humanity. She's their savior, even though she's got this image, this big misunderstanding. Like she literally saves them. She's their savior. She's the one that destroys a demon that nobody could destroy because every single drop of blood he kept literally just cloning himself and coming back. Again, I'm gonna go over that in detail. Just I'm gonna get there, I promise. Um, so when we get to Kali, history of her worship. So now we're looking at the history of her worship. I've touched on her symbolizing a shit ton, so you guys should really understand what she means, what she represents. Um, so the history of her worship. She's actually first known in the Bengal region of India. There are a lot of different scholarly approaches to finding her origin. A lot of different ones. There are three common ones, but there's even more than that. But there are three common ones for her origin. It actually cannot be pinpointed in time fully exactly like when she came into modern religion, when she became a huge part of it. We have Chandi, who is one of the most famous scriptures of India, in India, and it's the story of the Divine Mother Durga, coming to save the universe from absolute peril and a terrible demon king. Well, if Durga turns into Kali, like she's like obviously Kali has to like she's marked in that story. So that's kind of where we kind of see the first beginning, is right there. Otherwise we don't really have exact pinpoint in time. Like we just don't with the Vedas. As far as I can find, like she's mentioned in the Vedas, it's but it's really, really confusing on exact dates. Um, there is also, let's see, when she showed up in worship, she does date back as far as the 1700s, even farther than that. There's a former city called Calcutta, um, which they actually believe was named actually for her and created for her, and it was a city devoted to her. They think that it was actually built and centered around, it's called the ground of the goddess Kali, is actually the name around it when it translates to it. They actually think that that city may have built like on the ground where they believe, she saved humanity and where her origin story happened and where all that happened. So they actually believe like this city was actually created for her and to honor her. So that's where we see her coming up there historically. Also historically, there was a cult dedicated to her, a pretty intense cult. It's what's called the Thuggee cult, Thuggee. It was a pretty intense cult. They were in the 14th and 19th centuries. They were pretty violent. And they consider themselves her children. They claim that they were born of her sweat at the battle with the demon. I'm gonna just try to pronounce it once. Raktabja, Raktabija. They were actually like a very murderous, violent cult of robbers and thieves. Like if you think like Wild West gangs like in the United States were bad, like these guys like they took it to a whole other level. They actually
Kelsey,
yeah, go ahead.
if I can just interject there, just 1 second, it's actually pronounced thuggy,
Thank you.
Thuggi, and that is actually where the terminology thug comes from.
Thank you. I love that tidbit. This is my fun fact for the day, Paul, and I'm writing it down. I pick one fact every day to make sure I put into my brain that I learn new. This is my new
Yeah,
one.
The term thug actually comes from thuggy, and like we say, not only were they robbers and thieves, they also had a different branch of the Cali cult, which everybody has heard of, which is the Hashims.
Mm-hmm.
The Hashim were known for what? Murder for hire. That is where the term assassin comes from. Hashim. Fact number two for you.
I love it.
All right, I'll leave you back to it.
And actually, it doesn't surprise me that you know so much about them because the British is actually the one, like, they're credited for destroying the cult. Like, they're credited for eliminating the cult in the 19th century. Like, the British are actually
Yeah,
credited for that.
sorry about that.
No, I love it. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. Nope, do not apologize. You caught me some new information. I love it. That's what this is all about. Oh, so I love it. But a lot of Hindu scholars today, they really believe that they greatly misunderstood her. But that actually I didn't want to not touch on them at all because within her worship, like they had a reputation. They left a mark. Like they were important. When it comes to temporary Hindu populations, I've touched on it before, but she's really considered a mother goddess. She's popping up in like I said, a lot of Scott T practices, which focus on the divine feminine. A lot of temporary and contemporary Hindu populations and practices, they really focus on the relationship between her and Shiva as well. It remains incredibly essential throughout the Hindu world because that also comes up in tantric practices and it's used in the temples. Today, there's a lot of daily ritual sacrifice that's done to her with a goat at her temple in Calcutta, which if I pronounce that wrong, totally you can definitely again step on me. I love it because I read most of this, so I like to hear it. Um, and then in the addition, we also have in a lot of the Vedic traditions, she is fully embodied in the tantric tradition. She's in the folk practices. She's in the magical stories. She's a part of the traditional pantheon. She's a part of that. Tantrism, like they really accept her duality of nature and life and death and that we can't escape it, and they can't exist without one another. And they think that, yeah, she really pulls up in that. So beyond Hinduism though, as well, in contemporary worship and modern day worship, in the 20th and 21st century, she's really actually taken a lot bigger role. I see her a lot more frequently popping up. When I was actually kind of like going on the internet this last week, trying to just see what other people are doing, I was actually kind of amazed by how many blogs people are actually starting to talk about her and how many people are teaching like online courses and online temples about her. She's actually becoming a lot more popular. The reason being is a lot of feminists are actually really starting to use her. They're seeing her as the absolute ultimate representation of the female empowerment and the power of women. A lot of feminist movements are leaning more towards her as the deity, rather than like Lilith, which is actually interesting. I found this out this last week while I was looking through this, which I think this is super interesting. I really like it. And they're using her to rise above the patriarchy. A lot of pagans, like myself, we worship her, we use her, we invoke her as a spirit guide to help us embrace our feminine strength, to let go of things, shadow work. I've touched on it. I use her for anger, especially when I'm getting really explosive. She can be used for purification. She can be used for protections. I've seen and heard pagans using her for calling in abundance as well. Great for shadow work, obviously. All these dark deities are. It's a big reason why I'm doing them. We've also actually seen her show up in like Hollywood. She was in Indiana Jones. There's actually the temple that was in there that was dedicated to a version of her. The Rolling Stones, their iconic image, super similar to Kali Ma's tongue, like always being stuck out. Like they're in like super similar. So she pops up. And then in neo-paganism, if you worship the triple goddess, in an archetype energy or having three faces. Typically, you'll see Kali placed in the occult face. So you'll see her placed typically with the maiden. Sometimes the crone, but usually a maiden. But she does in neo-paganism show up there in the triple goddess archetype as well. There are two main festivals to act that are where she's a part of where she's a part of to worship. One main festival is the mother of Navartri. Again, if I'm mispronouncing it, step on me. You totally can. It's Navaratri, which is celebrated in North, South, and West India. And then you have Durga Puja, which is in Eastern India, which is also celebrated the same time of the year. So Navarti starts on the new moon day of the Hindu month of Ashvin. As the name suggests, it's celebrated for 9 nights and ends on the 10th day. Um, it's the it's a very spiritual, religious, cultural practice. In the South, people actually have 9 steps with dolls on them, and they actually will have. I'm not gonna. It's a Purna Kumbha, I think. It's Purnaqmbha. I have a nice image of it in the study guide for you. They all kind of you want to have it be something similar, but it's actually placed on the top step at the very center. It's a ceremonial piece, a piece to call friends, food. It's there to welcome devotees. It's there to bring in the deities. It's there to let them know that you're there to honor them and welcome them. It's there to be the centerpiece and to represent the circle of life. You're there to you celebrate for 9 nights of dancing, and you always make sure that you have the mother goddess Durga in the center of the circle of life. In the north, they actually do really dramatic retellings of a lot of the origin stories, and the vanquishing of Ravana is celebrated during that time. Durga Puja starts on the 16th day of the lunar period of the Hindu month of Sharad. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Again, if you want to step on me, go for it. Shraadh. And this is when the ancestors are worshipped. This is when it's said that the mother is said to descend from her abode with Shiva to be able to come to Earth and her maternal home on Earth. And it's the day where the battle actually happened between Kali. Actually, where the battle actually begins. Sorry, not happens, where it begins. So this is another super sacred festival where she used. It is said that there are 51 Skati Pithas in India and the surrounding countries, and those are temples. And they were born actually out of a part of the mother when Vishnu cut her body during her immolation. So those temples are actually like born as part of the mother, like part of her. So those temples are incredibly sacred. And it is said that in most of those temples, Kali is worshipped. So there's 51 different ones throughout that are used. She arrives in the Vedas around 1000 BCE. She's initially mentioned there. In the Vedas, I do actually in the study guide have a link to go get a copy. I hate Amazon, but it was the cheapest one I could find. If you find one in like your local bookstores, definitely go for it. I recommend reading this at least once in your life if you can. Reading the Holy Vedas for Hinduism. It's their sacred text. It's their sacred book. It's very, very enlightening as well. The information that's in there is incredibly enlightening. But I do have a link in the study guide for you as well. Okay, let me just take a peek at the chat. I like that tidbit there, Paul. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like if I was hired to kill somebody, or even if I was just killing somebody for revenge, I can understand wanting to look in their eyes. I mean, it psychologically makes sense to me. Is it kind? No, but it psychologically makes sense. Okay, so 3 origin stories. Again, there are more. These are the 3 main ones. She's got quite a few actually different ones. So and how she was born and how the Kali deity was born. There is in 250 to 550 CE. There's the Markandeya Purana, Markandeya. And in this text, she actually emerges as an aspect of the goddess Durga. Durga fought a battle between the divine and the anti-divine forces, and Kali actually grew from her forehead. because her bloodlust and wrath was so big and so powerful, like it needed to be separated from her. So in this version of Kali's story, she's the powerful and forceful aspect of Durga. This one also actually, I believe, is when she's actually summoned also for the demon, and I'm going to talk about that too. There's a Linga Purana, which is 500 to 1000 CE. And in this version of her origin, Shiva actually asked his wife, Parvati, to defeat a demon that only a female can kill. Parvati merges with Shiva and comes out as Kali. And Kali kills the monster, but her bloodlust is out of control, and only Shiva can calm it to prevent her from destroying the world. So that's another version of how she was created, her origin of how she was created. And then the next one is the Vamana Purana, which is in the final text. It offers an original tale at Kali. Shiva offends actually his wife Parvati by calling her Kali, the Black One. She becomes so upset that she actually separates herself into two beings, Parvati and Kali, and he remains married to both. So, three different origin stories of how how Kali came to be. And there's actually also another one that says that she's actually born of the earwax of Vishnu, which is interesting as well. I find this one super interesting. Because he was created from the earwax of Vishnu, because she was summoned to defeat a demon. She's almost always summoned to defeat a demon. It's not always the same demon, the same name, but she's almost always that. Or like you said, like the other two, we see her being like this dark version, this darker aspect, this shadow aspect of what's a light deity, and then they can't handle it and they split. So those are the two trains of thought that I usually come across with her. She's either created to protect or she's created to literally embody that duality and like kind of like because it comes too much is how it reads off to me. Um Let's see. So, what ends up happening when it comes to Vishnu is there's actually two demons that actually show up. They were determined to actually kill Brahm. And sensing trouble, Brahm actually prays to the female power, um, in order to be able to help. And in doing so, she actually asked to wake Vishnu and asked Vishnu's ear to use his earwax to be able to create Kali, and therefore she comes forth from that manner. Um, Again, I have so many. There's so many different versions for it. Those are the most common ones. In the study guide, you can go and read all the different detailed versions of her origins. I have all the different detailed versions of her. Because there's even a couple other ones to where she actually was morphed from a demon and cut from a demon. There's a couple different version stories with her. Okay, I want to get to the myth actually here. That's what I really, really want to talk about now. I just want to make sure I have it in front of me. Okay. So the main myth and story that you're going to hear her from, because I'm going to talk about this and then I'm going to go back and talk about her and Shiva. The main myth and story that people know of her, and this is where the infamous Kali dance comes from. This is the main image that most people know of her. This is where it comes from. It does have, like I said, it has a couple of different variations, mainly because of the origin. But this is actually also where she receives the title of Devouring Mother. And this is where she conquers the demon Raktabja. Again, probably totally butchering it, but Raktabiga. So there was a battle that was going on. And this demon was fighting Durga. And it actually like the demon's name actually translate, it means blood, just so you know, comes in a little bit later in the story. Durga wasn't able to defeat him. Every single time she hit him, every single time Durga managed to do any type of damage, anytime blood was spilt, he was able to replicate himself from just a single drop of that spilt blood. So he literally just kept replicating himself, kept cloning himself, kept coming up, and it seemed absolutely impossible to ever be able to put an end to this battle. Durga was completely surrounded by her enemies. She could, like, She wanted to continue to fight, but she's like, I don't know what to do. Like, there's no way to win. There was no sign for her to be able to win. And then she actually summons Kali. Again, there's a couple different versions. There's some that say that she was made from the droplets of the blood from the demon. There's others that say she was summoned from her forehead. Then, there's others because she had actually split herself previously. She was able to just summon her and she was just there. There's lots of different versions here, but she summons Kali. She emerges as the manifestation and the absolute uncontrollable part of Durga herself. Usually, this is how I see her. Again, we do sometimes see her as referenced as the other half of Shiva. We're going to talk about that too, just a little bit more detail on it. But usually, this is how you see her. She's the uncontrollable. She is the wrath. She is the determination. She's the ferocity. She is the protection. She is the I'm taking out injustice. I'm wiping out all the unclean. I'm getting everything pure. And she is literally that immense, uncontrollable part of Durga that she needs. Durga is super, super powerful on her own. So can you to even imagine how powerful this uncontrollable aspect of hers was is I honestly can't even wrap my head around it. That's why Kali's so amazing. The amount of power she could possibly have is just so immense. So what Kali actually does is she starts absorbing all the blood of the demon. So she starts taking it in. She starts lapping it, licking it in. Some versions, she's literally laughing and dancing and she's just all excited about it, so that she can't replicate himself anymore. And then eventually there's no more blood. There's no more left. He can't replicate himself. He's finally defeated. So after that battle ends, this is where this dance comes in. This is where this most iconic image comes in. She's actually so euphoric and intoxicated. There's a couple different versions of thought of why she's euphoric and why she's intoxicated. Whether it's something in that demon's blood, like an actual drug that did it to her, whether it's literally just because, being summoned and created that way. Another version that I've heard is simply just because, it's the euphoria of battle. It's the victory. It's all of that. It's the fact that she's that uncontrollable power. She's that uncontrollable rage. She's that uncontrollable power. It's gonna get euphoric at some point, having all of that coursing through you. So she actually keeps out so euphoric that she starts dancing all over the bodies of the dead, just dancing everywhere. And her dance is so heavy and it's so strong that all the worlds, they're very specific about that. It's not just one world, it's all the worlds, plural, actually tremble at the impact of her footsteps. They're trembling. No one could control her. No one could bring her back to her senses. And all the other deities are sitting there okay, well, if this continues, the worlds are going to be destroyed. So then there's a couple different theories because the connection, and if you think, if you follow that Kali was actually born and the other half is Shiva and born from Shiva, it makes a lot of sense. But also Shiva's her consort. But what actually ends up happening is Lord Shiva actually is you know what? There's no way. The only way they can think to stop her is to try to bring her to senses is she hurts me. So he actually takes himself, he throws himself amongst the demons that she had executed, amongst all these dead bodies that she's dancing on, so that she actually ends up dancing on top of him and crushing him by her feet. And when that happens, it brings her back to her senses, brings her back to her consciousness, and she's fully aware of what's going on because she just stepped on Lord Shiva, her consort, her other half, her lover, and it brings her back to her senses, it calms her down, and it stops her from preventing all the worlds from collapsing. That's the most common story that you hear from her. That's the most common myth that you have from her. She pops up a lot of other places, but that's the most one. That's the one that I'm going to do super retelling of for you. Other ones I have in the study guide for you that you guys can go and look at as well. But that's the main story. And again, that's that imagery that you see. That's actually her dancing on Lord Shiva. That's that most common thing. That's Shiva there, calming her down from her dance. That's her victory dance from that battle. That's her victory dance from defeating a demon who literally all other deities were there's no way to defeat this thing. It literally keeps replicating every time I heard it. Which is immense power as well. And for her to be able to defeat that, to literally just lick that up and defeat it speaks to how much power she has. In a couple different versions of the story as well, it is also said and talked about that each of her breath and every time that she breathes, She actually can breathe out millions of female soldiers, also otherwise known as chandakas. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but Chandikas. So it's said that she can actually do that, and so she can actually breathe them out. When she's going up against another demon later on, Mashashura, um, that actually is part of that story there where she does that. It's actually also this is where the lion also comes into, because it's actually said that that specific Ashura, which is another name for a demon, is actually was able to morph into a lion, and she killed him actually by lassoing him and severing his head. But again, there's like I said, there's so many different stories. I have a ton in the study guide for you. I wanted to go over that main one that most people know, and then the three main origins, but I have a bunch in the study guide for you to look at and go through. So Kali and Shiva, they have an incredibly influential association with each other. He's her consort, she's his wife. She at times is viewed as a feminine form of him. Some, like I said, one of her origin stories says that. Shiva is usually in tantric practices, he's usually one that's usually invoked and used, and she is his other half. So using her for that Scotty power, that divine feminine, he literally can't act without her assistance. He can't, like, it's literally so where Pavarti, his wife Pavarti, actually sues Shiva. Kali's there to ignite him. She's there to revoke him. She's there to get him to do the deeds that he needs to do to create. She's there to get him to do the things that he needs to do. She's that motivation. She's that fire underneath him. And then Shiva, he is the one that actually exists to soothe her. Kali is so freaking ferocious. Like, yes, is destroyer. Yes, Shiva destroys, but like she's ferocious. And there's actually a lot of different examples in the myths, a lot of different examples in the Vedas where Shiva's actually there calming her. One time he challenges her to a dance off. They dance for days and days and days until she ultimately wears herself out and he beats her. On another occasion, like she's very upset, she's very like euphoric, she's very like over the top, she's very angry, and he literally cries like a baby in order to appeal to her maternal instincts. And then, we have the story that we just talked about with, the demon, to where he literally threw himself underneath her feet because he knew, like, she would realize she's hurting me. She does not want to hurt me. I'm an innocent, let alone her consort, let alone her lover, let alone her other half. Like, this will get her out of her senses. They are both considered destroyers or transformers. They both are seen to inhabit cremation grounds. They're both said to be able to sit there and remind us that you need the divine feminine and divine masculine to fully be accepted within your body. You need to have that balance in order to remove that ego, in order to fully remove that physical attachment to your ego. And they also both sit there and remind us that our body's temporary. It is said that she is actually often seen in cemeteries, in cremation grounds, actually just dancing on Shiva while he lies there still, just dancing on her because that's what calms her down and he's okay with doing that. And like that's what they do. Shiva, like I said, he's there to control her destructive tendencies. And they really, really help bring out a liberation and ego and balance and duality in each other. And again, that most common image is like that's all over the study guide, even like that's those two, like that's her dancing on her husband. And like that dance symbolizes like the superiority as well of the spiritual world over the physical world. Like she is on top of him, like she is the cosmic spiritual realm, like she is there to break that. She's there to break that concept of the material world, and she is symbolizing how superior that spiritual world is over that over that physical realm. That dance itself represents the concept of the merrymaking of the gods and the fact that there's this entire cosmic reality that's represented in that. It's so full of duality, so full of nature, it's so full of life and death and cycles of creation and everything that's going on in the universe. That dance also like really represents the destructive aspect of, Kali. It really, really represents that. It also represents the nurturing aspect of her, that it can wake her up like that. So that dance, it represents literally the dance of the universe actually as well. It's literally the movements of the universe and the balance and how we exist to balance each other out, to soothe each other, to bring each other respite. I love the symbolization it has for marriage as well between those two. I absolutely adore it. Okay, so before we get into correspondences and worship and how to connect with her and things like that, I'm gonna jump into the chat, see if there's any questions or anything else going on. That's a lot of her history and myth and origins, and now it's really about the practice with her. Like I said, there's a ton that I didn't go over, so please look at the study guide so that you can see all the different details, because she's got a lot of different variations compared to a lot of the other deities. And I try to give you guys in super detail, like the most common handful. Okay, so I will jump back in. So when it comes to correspondences for her, if you haven't been in my class before, and if you had, you'll hear it again. A correspondence is something that you can use either energetically, physically. It represents that deity. It's a way to tie to that deity. It's a way to tie to that thing, that entity, not even a deity, because you can use correspondences for elements and anything like that. It's a way to tie and connect that energy, whether it's to bring it to your altar, to you personally, to your space, to your to it's a way to represent and connect. Um, so holidays, we've gone over animals. You can use a lion, a serpent, or a jackal. For herbs, red hibiscus really works well for her. Symbols, you can use skulls, knives. You can use, sometimes I've seen a lotus flower used with her. I try not to do that with her though, but sometimes I've seen that as well. You can use her garland. And I've also even seen people use the skirt of severed arms specifically as well. Crystals, you can use obsidian, bloodstone, red jasper, onyx, and as well as black tourmaline. I've had really good results with black tourmaline. Colors are going to be red, black, and white. So those are going to be what you can use for correspondences with her. And then as always with correspondences, you can use her image. You can use her like a statue. You can literally just use her name. You can have, there are sigils for her as well. And then I'm going to get into a little bit more detail here, but she really works and does a lot with mudras and mantras. Mantras are a great way to connect with her in correspondence that you can also use with her, even if it's simply just writing that mantra out and placing it on your altar. That way you have it there to make sure to remind you to come back to it and you're having that energy there. Mantras work way better though, speaking them out. That's the whole point of mantras, but that is something that you can do if you'd like. In the study guide too, I do also have a link to an amazing actual tarot deck that's based off of her. It's an oracle deck. It's actually really great, by Alana Fairchild. I actually really like it. It's pretty awesome. So if you want to check that out, like there's a form of her in divination, just so you know. Okay, so ways to connect with her. It's going to be the same type of stuff like I usually do with deities. I do have a really detailed study guide on the website on how to work with deities in general, so you can always pull anything from there. But making sure you can do an offering for her. When it comes to her, an offering that's really good is actually offering up pain or attachment. So something that you actually have severe pain or trauma with, or you have attachment issues with, actually offering that up to her so that you can allow her grace to actually help you with healing. She does really well with that. I actually specifically will offer up my anger as well. From an energetic standpoint and from a way like that, even if it's just simply me sitting there and in a meditative state to give her an offering of me listing off everything that's literally just ticked me off in like the last week, to try to offer it up to her as an offering to allow me to help heal and also understand like what is going on with the anger and why is it coming up the way it's coming up and why now. So that's, and actually it's a very common thing that I've seen a lot of people, very common that they offer up their pain and attachment to her as an offering. But you can do any of the offerings like correspondences, anything like that, when it comes to her. Also make sure that you're considering your intention with her. Like I always do with all of our DDs, make sure that you're being very intentional with what you're doing. She is one where she's meant to come and clear out all evil, clear out all negative. Like she is meant to be the protector of humankind. So make sure that your intentions are pure when you're doing things like that. As a offering to her, as an act of service, because a lot of offerings and a lot of worship with her will have to do with acts of service to others. Because she is there to protect. She is there to bring about, the goal of humankind. Singing mantras are fantastic way to work with her. This actually honestly is the number one way that I work with her, is singing mantras, even just humming them, but singing them is way better. From most people that I've talked to, most people that I have read from, that's their most direct path to her and experiencing her is through the mantras. This is what most of the texts say as well. Mantras create a very psychic imprint of sorts. It's a sound wave that is repeated enough, and it becomes part of your energy. It becomes part of your body, and then you're able to invoke the deity through that mantra and through it being part of your being as well. Um, she has quite a few mantras attached to her. I'm gonna actually go into a lot deeper dive. Actually, no, hold on. I'm gonna do mantras now. I'm gonna do it now. Let me just make sure I go there. We're here, so I might as well just go here. Okay, so when it comes to mantras, her mantras have a ton of benefits, and she's got quite a few that you can use with them. I think I put six, six total in here, seven total in here of the most common ones that you can use with her. But if you go on YouTube, if you go on Spotify, if you go anywhere and look up Goddess Kali Ma mantras, you're gonna find a lot. Even if you go look for sacred texts with Goddess Kali Ma mantras, you're gonna find a lot. The benefits for her are that her mantras really help invoke a powerful spiritual force. It creates new sensations within your soul, within your body. It helps transform your consciousness. And her mantras specifically help with strengthening the power of your spirit. You're finding resources to be able to overcome your life's difficulties, achieving spiritual enlightenment, for gaining strength and courage, for achieving goals. She can help get rid of debts and credits. She can help you gain focus. She can also help with developing a sharpness of your mind. A lot of her mantras help with making the right decisions, improving your health, attracting success and happiness and well-being. Her mantras have so many different benefits. Um, the most common ones that we have that are going on with her are we have the Bij mantra, which you say cream. I don't want to sing them, so I'm not going to do that right now. So that one is actually specifically for protection from all forms of negative energy. We actually have we have the Maha Kali mantra. We have the Ma Kali mantra. The Maha Kali mantra, I forgot that benefits actually specifically for problem solving. The Ma Kali mantra is specifically for spiritual growth. Then we have the Kali Gayatri mantra, which is specifically for bringing Kali's blessings to you. There's a 15 syllable goddess Kali mantra, which brings spiritual advancement. And then we have the Dakshina Kali Dwana mantra. That one is fabulous. This one is actually, that sixth one is really, that mantra is really just kind of, it pays homage to Kali. That's kind of the best way that I can say it. It's like a devotion to her. It's like a devotion to her. It's like a thank. It's like a gratitude. We also have a very popular goddess Kali mantra, and it helps you to clean the energies from your body and your soul. And it's one that I've talked about before. It can be used with a mala as well. I've seen this one used with a mala. I've also seen this one used with mudras as well. This one I've seen combined with a lot. And it's typically actually chanted 108 times each session, and it's chanted every single day. Um, the reason why give me one second. The reason why you do it every single day, the reason why you do it 108 times, 108 is actually very it's a very significant number in Hinduism. Give me one second, guys. I need really I need to cough. I'm gonna mute myself for one second. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Thank you so much for waiting while I coughed. I didn't want everybody to listen to me cough. Okay. And okay, yeah, the final mantra, it's pretty much a salutations to the Divine Kali. That's what it means. That's what it's there for. And it's really to bring her into your life, is to bring her presence into you. Um, when it comes to rituals, I actually do have quite a few in the study guide actually as well. So make sure you take a peek at them. I have them specifically for receiving wisdom, for calling in financial abundance, for health, and protection. I have one in there as well. When it comes to other worship with her, I'm gonna go back up to how to work with her and how to connect with her. So singing the mantras, that's the greatest, like I said, most direct, clearest way to connect with her. You can also create an altar, as always with all other deities that we've worked with before. You can always create an altar. I have a couple examples for you in there, some that I've looked like before. I'm not going to go over exactly how to create an altar because I did an entire class on that. If you missed that and you'd like to know, definitely just ask for the study guide, or otherwise I think the study guide's on the website. But I did a whole class on basics of creating an altar, so you can definitely create an altar for her. Another way to connect to her and have her be a part of your daily life and in your worship is adopting her stance, actually. So that very specific stance that she has. Um, it's actually called the Dakshina Kali stance, and it's an embodiment stance. It's that image that you see of her with her with her right foot forward and slightly bent, and then her left foot back to the side. It is a very, very specific stance that you see with her in all of her images. And it is said that the way that that is, it can open up specific energy flows throughout you, and it creates that energy flow. When you're doing that, you're embodying in that stance. You are embodiment empowerment. You are embodying her. You are embodying Kali for meditation. You're embodying her for devotionals. You're calling on her for strength. You're calling on her for protection. And you're calling for her to show up to you in her most benevolent form. And you're honoring her in her time of victory, in her time of, protection for you and all other humans. So that's a great way to connect with her, is having that, adopting that stance and having that stance be in your life and being a part of your practice. There are specific Kali prayers that you can use. I have a couple in here, so always praying to her. I've talked about this in other classes before. Make sure that you're doing that with the correct intentions, and make sure that you are doing that from a place of reverence and respect. Don't ever just pray to a deity just to pray. That's insulting. Make sure that you are coming to it from that reverence, that place of respect, that place of intention. A lot of people will use her to pray for guidance. She's great for giving guidance. She's great, especially like if you're really having a hard time with decisions or you just are straight up lost. Um, you can also use her when it comes to prayer for, because you can kind of, what's the verbiage I want to try to use here? Because there's a way that you can, I'm trying to think. Clarity in your relationships. That's going to be the way that I'm going to say that. You can also call her a prayer for clarity in relationships. That's going to be how I'm going to verbiage that. When you should call on her, and who should call on her. If you're having issues with conflict, you don't like dealing with conflict, if you need to gain courage or confidence, if you're having a lot of issues with self-esteem and your self-worth, she can really help pull forward that. When you want to tear down structures in your life, when you're having trouble with boundaries and saying yes to things, when you have things that really, really need to be removed, that are absolutely detrimental to being removed, specifically abuse, things like that. Like she's great to call in for that. When it's time to take what's yours, when it's time to stand up and what is your power, when it's time to stand in for what you deserve. When it's time to be like, you know what? No, I've been a people pleaser for so long. I've been letting people walk over me all this long. Like I'm done. Like I'm standing up. I'm taking what's mine. I'm taking my self-worth back. I'm taking it back. Also, when you need to find the strength to walk away, that's a great time to be able to call on her, because she is there to do the deeds that are nobody wants to do. And finding the strength to walk away when you should is an incredibly, incredibly difficult thing to do, an incredibly courageous thing to do. And she can really help you with that and call to you with it. She's used as a revolutionary god as well. You can invoke her for any type of transformation. She's great with transformation and cyclical work like that. And for purifying your inner body and your chakras, working with your Kundalini energy. If you don't know what that is, we do have some classes on that on the YouTube, actually, if you're not familiar with Kundalini energy. And she's really, really, really great for moving enlightenment because she really helps break you from your physical self. She helps break you from your ego. So she's really great for helping move that spiritual awakening and that enlightenment. So another great, fantastic way to connect with her is mudras. Kali has mudras that are attached to her. If you don't know what a mudra is, a mudra can be translated as seal, a mark, or gesture. And the mudras are symbolic gestures that are often practiced with your hands and fingers. You end up connecting your fingers in certain combinations. And when you do that, you actually end up or can activate meridians and cause direct energy throughout your body. You end up restoring the flow of energy, and you actually can possibly eliminate breakdowns in disease organs. So each position that you end up putting your hands in a mudra has its own specific meaning. It has its own benefit, and it has its own purpose. Each finger also has its own symbolic significance. So the index finger is associated with knowledge, wisdom, and self-confidence, and is our connection to our life force. The middle finger is responsible for patience and the ability to control feelings. And this finger is connected to our heart chakra. The ring finger is responsible for health and vitality, and this finger is connected to the respiratory and nervous systems. The pinky is associated with a creative component of the personality and your ability to see beauty. It's also responsible for your pelvic organs. And your thumb is responsible for your ego, your will, and your logic. And it's also associated with your wisdom, mind, and awareness. So when you, depending on how you have your fingers in these combinations, like those are the energy flows that are opening and closing, and those are the channels that you're working with. This is kind of similar to regulating your flow as if you are practicing hatha yoga. And the only other difference really is that with hatha yoga, you achieve this effect by taking different body poses, whereas with mudras, you are actually just doing the same, but with your fingers. So benefits for Kali Mudra specifically. They can help reduce your systems of stress, depression, anxiety, insomnia. They can help relieve tension and stiffness in your joints. They can cleanse any negative aura. They can help you be able to defend your point of view, worldwide and globally even. Give you courage and eliminate fears, removes darkness and ignorance, cultivates courage. It can remove tension. It can help you build up your prana. It can calm your mind. It can help stop negative internal dialogue. It can help you. They can help you call forth to be the defender of justice, helps manifest positive transformations, opens up gateways to freedom. It can also be used for protection from negative people, energy vampires, and psychic attacks. It can also help in having mudras. Using mudras can also help protection in when you're in a toxic environment and from a toxic environment. They can also help you find a clear guidance in a new path in life and help you completely destroy and remove anything that no longer serves you and completely destroy and removes all false thought patterns. When it comes to doing a Kali Mudra, I do have the image. This I really don't want to go on camera because I really feel like we look like crap. Okay. If you jump into the study guide, you can see it. I wonder if I can do this. Hold on. No, I can't. Thought I was gonna maybe be able to send a picture in the Zoom chat, but I cannot. Oh, and now what did I do to my thingy? Oh, I made it really mad. Okay, does she prefer her own altar or will she share? I personally, this is one that I actually keep by herself. I have not heard that you can't, or that I have not heard stories of people having negative like situations happen from her or negative repercussions from having her on an altar with anybody else. But
Kelsey, if I can just pop in here.
go ahead.
Okay. I have a view on this, and it is just a personal view only. Okay.
Okay.
I've not read this anywhere. This is just a personal view. Um, if you're working with Kali, use an exclusive altar. And my reasoning for this is Kali is not always a subtle deity to work with.
Yep.
At times, um, can be very in your face,
Mhm.
to put it mildly.
Yep.
If you've ever worked with planetary forces, it's kind of like working with Pluto. It can be very abrupt and very quick, and it's like when you get really, really angry and all of a sudden you explode. It's that explosion of energy. Because of that, and purely because of how quickly that transformation process can start, I personally would keep her on a solitary altar. But again, that is just me, and I've only worked with Callie a couple of times. But
That's gonna be
I've always
exactly my
had the,
reason.
but I have always kept, if I'm doing an altar for Callie, I've always kept it exclusive for Callie because of the Callie, as I say, Callie, working with Callie is like working with a sledgehammer.
Yep. That's a great way to say that.
It's not like you stood there with a little coffee hammer and you chip, 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 chip. No, with Callie, put down the toffee hammer and get out the 15-pound sledgehammer because it's coming.
And not only that, she is gonna be like laughing and like joyful while she watches everything tear down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And talking of that response about tearing things down and how she's happy about it, which kind of ties in with the thuggy reference that I made in the chat.
Hmm.
When you're being playful and when you're messing around with somebody and somebody says something and you just stick your tongue out, why do you stick your tongue out?
Usually
It's
they're
that
being a
immediate,
joke. Yeah.
right. It's the jovialness of it. It's the
Yep.
joy of it.
Yep.
Again, as I said with the thuggies, as they watch the life drain out of your soul, they like to stick their tongue out at you. Kind of
I love
messed
it,
up,
Mom.
but
Like I said that too. I'm like, it's pretty messed up, but like psychologically, I get it.
right. I mean, it's the ultimate screw you, so to speak.
It really is.
But yeah, I mean, in my practice, and again, I've got to make this perfectly clear. This is my practice. If I've done an altar, and as I say, I've only worked with Callie a couple of times, it's always been an exclusive altar simply because of that sledgehammer impact.
Yep.
And I don't want that to disturb any of the other vibrations, any of the other energies that I've got working.
Yep. Yep.
So
The only other
just my two
deity that I've
cents.
ever put with her is Shiva. That's the only other deity that's ever gone anywhere near her. I totally agree
Uh,
with you for that exact reason.
yeah, I mean, as I say, you're working with a sledgehammer.
Yep.
Um, you want something gone? Yeah, he goes on about it.
Thank you, Paul. I love it. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so back to the mudras. I talked about the benefit of the mudras with her. Um, I don't know why it was even in chat. Oh yeah, because I was trying to show you an image of it. But check the study guide because I have it in there for you exactly how to do it. I actually even walk you through exactly how to get into a space to be able to use mudras. With her specific mudra, It's recommended that you practice this mudra for at least 15 minutes daily, and the best time to actually practice it is between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. or 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. It's just I've seen that through a lot of different texts because of the time frame that it is. When you're doing mudras, make sure that you're in a comfortable position, you're keeping your back straight, that your breathing is slow and relaxed. If you like to do box breathing, this is a great time to use box breathing. Place your palms in front of your chest in a namaste position. You end up focusing your intention. You'll end up visualizing and calling in that energy, that Kali energy, and then you do the mudra. And while you're doing that, you'll then sit in that. You'll still be in that practice while watching your breath. Is really kind of like a meditative state that you're in while you're doing this, while you're feeling that energy, while you're with that mudra, while you're feeling it circulate inside your body and through your energy points. Um, Fabulous. So like that's mudras. That's mudras. Okay. When it comes to mantras, I have given you lots of different benefits for her, lots of different ways to use them. That's, like I said, another great way to work with her. I have rituals that I have in there for you guys. And I have an invocation as well. I want to make a notation on that invocation though. That where I want to make sure I put it in here. If I didn't, then I need to add it. Hold on, I'm just reading really fast to make sure I have this in here. Okay, so I'm not sure why this happens with her. I've actually tried to find some research to figure out why it happens with her, and I did put it in here, so I wanted to make sure that I did. When you're invoking her, I don't know why, but for some reason, if you use an image, if you use like a picture image, I have a hard time getting her to invoke if I don't put that image behind my altar. If I don't have it at the back of my altar, if I don't have it behind her statue, if I don't have it behind something, I again, I don't know why I can't get her to invoke without it. That's why I wanted to make sure I had this in here. I want to make sure to touch on it. If anybody has any ideas for me why that's possible, I've done a lot of research to try to figure that out for her of why that is. I would love to hear it because I've been trying to figure that one out. It's been racking my brain for a while. But her imagery, her symbol, like her sigil, whatever you use to call upon her, like visually, it likes to be behind all of the offerings. It likes to be behind everything that you're giving to her. It likes to be behind. I can't get her to pull through without it. If it, and again, that's my personal practice. If it might be different for you and it might work super, super differently for you. And again, I can't figure out why. It might be a me thing. It might be part of my energy, but I did just want to notate that if you're having issues and you try to do that, that might be why. Because her stuff,
Well,
it literally, Paul, you have a theory on that for me?
yeah, I do.
Okay.
And I'm exactly the same. On the two occasions I've worked with Callie, um, the image has to be at the back. And I think I know why. She is coming forth to you in order to help you. She is coming through your offerings to
Okay.
her in order to offer something to you.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, Paul. The way that makes perfect sense the way you worded that. I absolutely love that. Okay, that makes perfect sense. That
That's how. I mean, I've like you. I've tried iconography at the front and at the back, and on the two times I was successful, every single time the picture was at the back of the
Yep.
altar.
Okay, and I'm not gonna lie to you, also, Paul. You're making me feel so much better knowing it wasn't just
No,
me.
I can't
This one
even.
perplexed me so much.
You know how sometimes you'll put icon. I'm just going to use the word picture
Go for
for the sake
it.
of it. That you know how sometimes if you're setting up an altar, you'll have them center place, you'll have them left,
Yep,
you'll have them right, you'll have them forward,
yep,
you'll have center at the back every single time.
yep.
And the only way I can think of, because I'm calling to her, I'm offering her the offerings that I've got down. She is coming forth through my offering to her in order for her to be of service to me.
I, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense with her. Okay.
And
I love it.
as I say, I've tried to work with her on 3 or 4 occasions. And now that you've made me think about it, it's only when the offerings were in front of the picture that it's worked,
Yep.
which further reinforces what I've said.
It took 3 times of me trying with her, and each time I had moved things around just to like see if that was the issue. And then that fourth time it was in the back, and I was like, okay. 'Cause I make notes of detailed notes of where things are placed when I do things.
And
So like,
I typically
yeah.
nowadays, I'll tend to, because I've got a Samsung phone, I can attach images to notes. If I'm doing a specific altar or a specific working and it works in a certain place, I will take a photo and make a note of why I place things, where I placed them, what they were, what their correspondence was, yada yada yada.
Oh, I love it.
Um, but I will use an actual photo of it. And I've even got to the point where if I'm in a pinch and I need to be working with a deity in a hurry, I can then pull up that picture and use that as a point of focus on meditation to
Oh,
help through the deity that I'm working with. But I do not do, I'm really finicky when it comes to deities. I don't have a specific altar. I don't follow a specific deity. I do a lot, especially in the Egyptian Parthenon. Um, but again, I've used an image as a point of focus for a meditation in order to be able to raise that energy level or calm myself down in a certain situation, or if I'm facing a situation and I need advice, I've gone into a meditative state by using the image that's related to said deity at said point, so on and so forth. So just another witchy tip, so to speak.
I wish you could see my binder. I have a binder in my altar that is literally full of all images of every deity and entity that I can work with, so that if I need to do the same thing that you're doing, I literally just pull it out and I go to the one that I need for that. I do the same. I went, one of these days I might just have to have class where you guys can see, because my whole new setup is actually in the same room that my altar and my meditation room is in now. So I might just actually have to let you guys see all the different altars I have. 'Cause it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a set space for an altar, just simply because of the setup of the house. I don't have a specific, I have a, for want of a better word, a traveling altar that I use when I need to put an altar up.
I love it. I love it. I taught how to make those too. I love
Yep,
traveling altars. They're the best.
yep. Anytime you go on vacation or if I'm going away on a long work trip where I'm going to be away for a few days, typically that's one of the first thing that gets packed.
Yep, there's one hidden in my car. It's always in my car. People have emergency kits, and in my emergency kit, there's literally a travel altar kit. Okay, fabulous. Okay, so sorry guys. Side stuff there. I love though that you gave me that answer, Paul, and it makes me feel so much better too, knowing that it wasn't just me. I felt a little neurotic, not gonna lie. Okay. Honestly, guys, I've covered everything when it comes to Kali. Like I said, the way that I'm feeling, I don't really want to call her for you guys today, and this is really big energy. So if I'm not feeling 100%, I'm not willing to let that come through me and possibly negatively affect you guys. So, um, I'd love to see all your altars. Okay, I might have to try to figure out how to make that happen. Okay. This webcam's kind of hard to move, this new one I have, but I will try to figure out how to do that. But okay, so sorry, I got distracted by the chat. But But I have done everything. I've covered everything that I really wanted to with her. Does anybody have any questions or anything? Because like I said, I don't wanna call her if I'm not like Paul talked about too. Like she's huge energy, and if I'm not 100%, it's gonna be detrimental to me. So I'm not gonna call her. So anybody have any questions, any other tidbits they want to put in? Because otherwise, this is class today, and I thank you guys so much for being here with me.
If I could only add one more thing.
Go for it.
Okay, with and it's kind of the same for regardless of which deity you're working with. Um, but something that you mentioned, Kelsey, that I think is really, really important to emphasize yet again, and that's the honor, the reverence, and the respect.
Hmm.
Um, because a lot of these gods and goddesses we work with have a duality, and it's very easy without doing it intentionally to offend a certain god or goddess. I am talking from personal experience here, people.
Yeah,
Reverence, respect, and honor is very, very, very important. This is not the kind of work you can do half-assed.
nope, it is not. It is absolutely not. It is absolutely not. You cannot half-ass it, and you cannot. That's also why I also tell you guys, please don't try to invoke right away and be that the first thing that you do. I tell you guys, you need to develop that relationship and you need to get that connection. Because, like Paul's touching on here again, like it is, this is not super, super easy work. It's not half-hearted, lighthearted work. And you can add consequences if you do the wrong thing.
I don't mean to focus on the negative side of things, but we are dealing with the darker entities here. Although pretty much any deity that you're going to use will have some form of duality, and not all of them, but some of them. Well, the majority of them.
Yeah.
Um, but if you go and invoking these kind of entities into your space, into your place, I'm sorry, your little circle isn't going to matter for squat.
Agreed. Agreed.
It's kind of like when people talk about dealing with angelic beings. To an angel, you are nothing but a speck of dust. You are completely irrelevant. I'm sorry to break it to you people. I would sooner deal with a demon than an angel any day.
Oh my, yes. Oh God, yes. Oh, yes. 1,000 times, yes.
And I don't, again, I'm not trying to be bashing on anybody, any group, or any particular practice. I mean, those of you that know me know that I do Enochian work, so I'm dealing with angelic entities. But if I had the choice of dealing with an angelic entity or a lesser entity, I'm going lesser every single time.
Yep, I say that too, Paul.
But always, always approach this from reverence, respect, and like again, just to reinforce what you say, Kelsey, you have to build up this relationship. This isn't the kind of thing that somebody stressed you out in Walmart and you can go out to the car and deal with. It don't work that way, people. You want to do that, use a sigil. So I just wanted. I've noticed of late online that calling in a god or a goddess is, oh, all you need to do is blah 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 blah. I invoke thee in the name of blah 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 blah, and everything's peachy and rosy. It doesn't work that way, people.
That right
And
there, Paul, is exactly why I wanted to teach these classes.
right, it's important to realize that I mean, you wouldn't go making, I don't know, you wouldn't go making borscht unless you had all of the ingredients because it wouldn't be borscht otherwise. It would be, I don't know, vegetable soup. You don't make lasagna without the lasagna sheets. Don't do the same when you're dealing with deities, please. And I'm not just saying this because I work heavily with deities, because I don't. I work heavily with the planets and the elements. But if you come from a place of respect, honor, and reverence, you'll stand a whole lot better chance with building up an amazing relationship. A relationship that will last you a lifetime. So
Yes.
I think it's really, really important that people understand this. And there's nothing wrong with working with a deity from the Roman pantheon, and then one from the Greek, and then one from such and such, and then one from the Egyptian, or, just be aware that you have to go from respect, reverence, and honor, and be honest. Trying to deceive a deity ain't going to work
No. No. Mm-mm. It's not.
because
Nope.
they'll see right through it.
Yep. Even if you
And
don't even realize you're trying to deceive them.
right, this is why it's really important to do your research and build up that relationship, because you'll know eventually. It might not even be a case of you calling to them. They may call to you. But I'm getting real tired of seeing, especially online, oh, I had a dream about Lilith. I'm now a servant of Lilith.
Ugh.
Really? Do you want to be Lilith's bit? I would think twice before you go making those kind of statements, people.
I agree, Paul.
So I just think it's really important, the reverence, the respect, the honor, so on and so forth, and building up that relationship. Because, well, I'm not going to say it's inherently dangerous working with deities. As with everything with duality, there are positives and there are negatives. Which do you want? And at that, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Paul. I love it. And I agree with everything he says. So. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for being here with me today. I really, really appreciate it. So the next dark goddess devotional is going to be in 2 weeks. Because I need to start rotating my classes for my energy. My energy is getting way out of whack with doing just feminine energy. So let me just go look and see who we're doing. Just so you have an idea of who's coming up. Who did I pick? Tiamat. We're doing Tiamat next. Ha 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 ha! I love Tiamat. Ooh, I love Tiamat.
That reminds me, I've got to get that stuff over to you.
Yeah, I was gonna send you a message actually after this to ask you.
Yeah, next couple of days, Kelsey, me and you'll have a chit chat.
Sounds good.
All right.
So then before then though, guys, we're doing Hades next week. We're gonna do our first one with a god, and we're doing Hades. Hades is a patron deity for me, because of his association with Lilith, not Lilith, with Persephone and how close I am to Persephone. I'm really excited to do Hades for you guys. Super, super, super excited. Okay, Paul, did I cut you off accidentally?
No, I cut myself off. I just jumped into chat real quick just to make sure I hadn't missed anything.
Sounds good. Okay, guys, have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for being with me. I have to end the recording.
Thank you. We love you.
Thank you.